Today we're going to be looking at the Marvel Legends Marvel Studios, the first 10 years. This is Captain America Civil War, Captain America, and Crossbones. Crossbones, a Hydra agent and former double agent at S.H.I.E.L.D., Crossbones makes it his mission to take out Captain America no matter the loss of life at stake. Meanwhile, for the Cap, America's first super soldier, Captain America must decide if he stands by his government in the aftermath of a disastrous strike on Lagos, Nigeria. So let's go ahead and figure out how tall these figures stand. We'll first start with Captain. Captain's about right there. He's exactly 6 inches in height, or if you measure things in centimeters, he is 15.4 centimeters in height. Now let's have a look at Crossbones. We'll set it back to 0. Put it to the top of his head. That's about right there. And the figure, let me just switch it, there you go. It says 6.1, I might have actually just measured a little bit higher. It wouldn't be no surprise at all to find that these figures are roughly the same height. I've got 6.1, but it's probably 6 inches. And again, in centimeters, you're looking at 15.5 centimeters. Even though these don't technically, they're not part of the same movie, just to do some size comparisons. Here we have the Hulk. Just recently looked at the Hulk, that's why we're using him for size comparison. And here he is next to the Hulkbuster. Just going to give you a scale to the other figures that we've already had a look at. There's all of them there. I like, again, that they're all different sizing. I feel like Hulk is a little bit taller, but I think the biggest problem is not so much that Hulk is too tall, but perhaps that these two figures are a little too small. Looking at the figure's accessories, why don't we first start with Captain America. He comes with a really nice looking shield. I would be foolish to think that this shield has made only this appearance, and has probably frequently made appearances with the Captain America releases. However, I do think that the metallic inclusion of the metallic red, the metallic silver, and the metallic blue are probably new entries here. The shield looks good. Paint's a little messy, I will admit it. I don't know what's happened here, but if the camera's picking it up, it's sloppy. It actually looks like somebody put on a first layer of paint and then went back reluctantly and put a second coat of paint and then realized, ooh, I should have probably just gone with the first coat of paint. It's not bad on this side. Here, though, it's extremely just gloppy. I'll talk a little bit about the shield in a second. There's something I want to mention about that. The figure also comes with actually a really outstanding release of a Steve Rogers head sculpt. Now, I don't know if this is a brand new head sculpt. I feel as if it is. It's a really nice representation of Steve Rogers, at least from a bodiless standpoint. I'll switch out the head in a second. Paint is actually really good on it. And for Marvel Legends quality, which is debatable at times when it comes to the movie figures, they're never quite the perfect likeness. I think this one is actually pretty good, though. And there's the sculpting of the hair. Really nice added paint there. They've got 2 different types of paint, a lighter blonde and then almost like a medium brown added there. Really good looking head sculpt. As for Crossbones, we'll spend some time on each of the figures, don't worry. He comes with also a maskless or helmetless head as well. Brutally, violently scarred. He is also the same gentleman that was also in the Purge movies. Not the first Purge, but I think he was in Purge 2 and Purge 3. Obviously not in the new Purge, because that's a prequel, even though I have not seen the new Purge yet. But nonetheless, a decent likeness of the actor here. Actually ran into him. I didn't run into him, but I walked by him in LA when we went and saw the Captain America Civil War premiere. He was actually at the after party, which was kind of cool. Nice head sculpt, though. Put that right over there. Let's have a look at the figures themselves. Now, I'll start with Captain America, and then we'll kind of beeline ourselves over to Crossbones. I like the body. And the coloring is definitely where these figures have been enhanced from their originals. I think the bodies as a whole and paint is definitely much more screen accurate here. The darker blues work extremely well, along with the very muted, almost dirtied whites and reds. The Civil War Cap suit is actually my favorite of the movie suits, if you will. And it definitely looks good here in plastic form. The head sculpt is good. Something is throwing me off, though, when it comes to the eyes. I don't know which eye I actually prefer. This one seems a lot smaller, but it seems proportioned to his head. This one seems bigger, but at least it's in the center area. One eye is so much smaller, and it's moving its way over to the nose. I don't know if he's going to visit or what he's doing, but the eye area is really what's throwing off the face. I also can't help but feel like the head sculpt, the head is much bigger proportionately to what it should be for the rest of his body. It seems like his head is giant versus the rest of his body, and maybe that's why it reads so much stumpier and smaller than what it actually should be. Maybe if the head was just slightly, not so much width-wise, but maybe length-wise, if it was just a little bit smaller. I don't know what, maybe that's throwing off the proportions for the rest of the figure. Nonetheless, we'll go ahead and pop the head off the ball joint, and we'll replace it with the Steve Rogers head. There we go. And I would definitely say a marginal improvement. In fact, actually a better improvement than this head sculpt. Yeah, I don't know. These eyes. I think it's this eye that's throwing me off on all of it. I don't know. The head seems not as big, or maybe it's just for the fact like the heads are exactly the same length, so there's accuracy at least to that. I kind of dig this head sculpt, I think, a little bit more than Cap's regular masked or capped head, so to speak. Then we can look back at his accessory. And I got a big problem with his accessory, and I'm not just talking about the paint either. Unfortunately, I've noticed with all of these Marvel 10, the first 10 years figures, none of them seem to come with interchangeable hands, which is fine. I don't feel the need that they have to have relaxed hands or gripping hands, but I feel Captain America should be an exception to that rule. The reasoning why I say that is if you take his shield, he's got a broader strap that's supposed to go around his forearm, and then he's got the smaller strap that's supposed to go around his hands. They're not the softest of plastic, but the idea is you're supposed to fit them through. You will abruptly get halted as you have to force it around Cap's hand. Why, oh why, did they not simply just put a gripping hand as an interchangeable option? Argument could certainly be made that if you've got gripping hands somewhere in your collection, you could simply just swap it out. But I really feel like I shouldn't have to. The shield sits only well when I'm forcing the arm in. And it just doesn't look natural. Not that you can be looking at the interior of the shield like this, but that just doesn't look natural that he's got this gripped, almost stern gripping to his hand. And then that's the way he's supposed to be holding his shield. I don't really buy it. Getting the shield off is actually becomes increasingly easier the more times you do it, but getting it on and getting it off is difficult and a struggle at first. I feel, again, it doesn't seem like he holds the shield naturally. Shouldn't have to force it on as much as I should, and really an interchangeable hand certainly would have gone a long way. Take the shield off. After all that, let's have a look at his posability. His head rotates all the way around. Now this will be the same whether you use this head or this head here. It also hinges up and down. The shoulders are also on pin and socket or universal joints, so they rotate all the way around. They also hinge out. A little on the loose side, I have to admit, but I'm starting to become used to this by now. Swivel on the bicep. He's got a double hinge on the elbow, and he's got a swivel and hinge back and forth on the hand. Upper torso crunch, waist swivel, legs split out, forward and back, swivel on the top cut of the thigh, a double hinge on the knee, swivel on the boot, and a hinge back and forth on the foot. A little bit of an ankle pivot there as well, and yes, he does have pegals on the undersides of his feet. So there is Captain America. To its positives, the figure has some great coloring, some of the most movie-accurate coloring I think I've seen so far from the Marvel 10 studios. Actually, to be fair, that's not true. I also really like the Hulk. But I think he's got good coloring. I feel like his head is a little on the big side, And gosh darn it, pardon my French, I really wish that he could have had interchangeable hands, at the very least, just so he would look like he naturally held the shield instead of just forcing it on him. Put him right over there. Then we have what I can only gather to be the exclusive figure to this set, and that is one Crossbones. A nice representation of how he looks in the film, though short in the film, I have to stress that. Speculation has been surfacing that he may make a reappearance. I really don't know how that's going to be possible, but I guess time traveling may be the big thing that's going to be happening with Avengers, the Avengers 4 film. A good head sculpt, like I said, it's got that smearing of a standard SWAT helmet, so to speak, and then they've smeared the white across it to kind of give it the look of a skull. And then down below you've got the crossbones, just like I said, smeared across. It's a good way to give a comic character a realistic look without going completely realistic. And you know, it's just not fun. I think Crossbones was fun, and still was very much rooted in a realistic environment. Now you can go ahead, before we take off his head, some great scarring there on the interior, even though you really only see his eyes. Great sculpt there on the interior of his eyes, though. It almost looks like one of his eyes is completely deformed. Like there's not much of an eye left. This eye is completely fine. Although when you look at this eye, you can see, yeah, he is supposed to have two perfectly working peepers. The head sculpt here just happens to look as if, you know, he's got, almost look like he's got bloodshot eye happening there. Let's go ahead and take his head off. There we go. And replace it with the unmasked head. And again, it looks good. I probably would find myself more so displaying him with this particular head than I would displaying it with this head, which I almost feel like is the opposite. I feel like I would be more inclined to display Cap with that head than the helmeted head. But nonetheless, there's the two head sculpts for one Crossbones. His outfit is big, bulky, and full of like armor and weapons and all that good stuff. None of which can be removed, unfortunately. I thought, if anything, the pistol could be removed from side holster, but that not be the case. I suppose you could kind of pry it off, but I would imagine it's just been glued into the holster there. A big, bulky SWAT armor piercing, like an armor vest, so to speak. It's got some little clips, magazine clips, and it's got some bullets and stuff up at the top there. It looks like he's got a knife, none of which, sadly, can be removed. There's the back of him right there. These sit loose, and I suppose to some extent you may be able to take them off, because really they're just, as you can see there, it looks like he's just gripping them. But the reasoning why I'm not going to take them off is the reasoning why I know it's going to be a problem getting them back on, is getting them back on and then getting him to hold it again, which I think would be a feat all on its own. So for that reason, I'm just going to leave them on. They look very accurate. These kind of battering ram fists, I think, look extremely cool on him. This is a really cool looking figure. He does feel short, though, kind of my same complaint with Captain America. It seems ever more present, though, when it comes to Crossbones, because it seems like he's got really short, stumpy legs. Proportionately, he doesn't look bad here, up. Here, down, though, it looks like I'm looking at a completely different figure, at least from a proportion standpoint. Nonetheless, posability on Crossbones, his head rotates all the way around, hinging up and down. Shoulders hinge out to the best of their abilities, some of which the clips are pretty good for staying out of the way. You're going to rotate the arms all the way around. He also has a swivel on the bicep area, double hinge on the elbow. He has, unfortunately, nothing in the torso. There's just so much business going on here, so much extra stuff. But he does have a swivel here in the waist, legs split out, forward and back, swivel on the top cut of the thigh, once again a double hinge on the knee, and a rock back and forth, and an ankle rock back and forth that way as well. Oh, and also they've got peg holes on the undersides of their feet. But that kind of goes without saying. I would imagine most of you probably would imagine that these figures would have, you know, peg holes on the undersides of their feet, and they do. It's funny, though, now that I've changed out the head sculpt for Crossbones, he seems ever more smaller than Cap. and ever more apparent, it seems like his legs are very stumpy. That seems to be the problem that I have with both of the figures. Decent figures, but proportionately, they seem off to me. The set here that consists of Captain America and Crossbones, I think the figures here have some of the best sculpts and most film-accurate paint schemes. Unfortunately, though, the trade-off for that is I find that both figures are awfully proportioned. Captain America is off proportion because I feel like his head is way too big for his entire body. His body seems much smaller for the heads that's sitting on top of his shoulders. Crossbones is the worst culprit of this. His upper torso is fine, but I find his lower legs are way too short to carry the mass of his upper body. This, looking at the two figures, you can really see, or at least I can see, that Crossbones is just way too short. His lower legs, that is. Still, not a bad set to pick up. I definitely still hold true to what I said, that it definitely has one of the better paint schemes, the more film-accurate paint schemes from the figures that we've looked at so far on this channel. Just as a little side note, though, why oh why, for that price point, the fact that these are supposed to be quote-unquote premium figures, why can't any of these figures get interchangeable hands? I feel strange forcing the shield over Captain America's closed fists. Why oh why couldn't he simply just have gripping hands and call it a day? I don't think gripping hands would really top the price point that it would have to go to the next tax or next price bracket, so to speak. So interchangeable hands certainly could have gone a long way, and proportions to these figures I think could have been greatly improved so that they didn't look so stumpy. And I'm looking more at you, Crossbones, than I am at the Cap. Either way, this set is currently available. Target's got it. If you don't have Target like you are here in Canada. Target also is not available in Canada, but you can get them at EB Games. That's where I got a lot of these, actually. So if you're looking to pick these up and you're in Canada, I probably would suggest checking out EB Games. They've got a whole stock of these. Toys R Us has some of them as well, but it seems like store to store, not so much that they have exclusives, but I find some stores have certain ones and other stores have certain others. Either way, not a bad set to pick up, even if it has quote-unquote shortcomings. Yes, I had to go there. Today, though, we were having a look at the Marvel Studios, the first 10 years. This was the Captain America Civil War from 2016. This was the Captain America and Crossbones. If you guys haven't had a chance to hit that little subscribe button down below, what are you waiting for? Many more videos will be coming your way. Make sure as well you swing over to the main page, check out the videos that are currently sitting there, and see if there's anything you may have missed along the way. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you next time.